In today's episode, TikTok gets banned in Montana, NATO prepares to draw up war plans, and New Zealand's government gives out free stuff. This July, NATO will be meeting in Vilnius for a summit to discuss increasing troop levels and other aggressive posturing in relation to a perceived Russian threat. Thousands of secret documents and new military plans are being drawn up, awaiting approval as NATO plans to respond to a hypothetical wider Russian attack on Europe. This is the first time such measures are being taken since the end of the Cold War. Prior to this summit, NATO officials had thought the threat of Russia died with the illegal dissolution of the USSR, and had otherwise occupied themselves in smaller illegal conflicts in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. After the debut of the Ukrainian conflict, however, the organization is reassessing its priorities by planning for a conflict with what they term a peer adversary. The plans include guidance on how to upgrade force buildup as well as logistics, by which the various NATO countries will know exactly which forces and capabilities are required, where, and how to deploy them across the alliance and beyond. Such regimenting and the assignment of certain troops to certain areas recalls Cold War levels of preparedness, which is being made possible through the raising of the amount of high-alert combat-ready troops from 40,000 to 300,000. One difference from pre-1990, though, is Finland's inclusion in NATO, which has added 1,000 kilometers of new borders to monitor, and has shifted previous assumptions of where the bulk of the fighting would take place. NATO leadership continues to reject Baltic state demands for increased troop presence close to the Russian border. One senior NATO official warned, "The more troops you are massing up on the border, it's like having a hammer. At some point, you want to find a nail. If the Russians are massing troops on the border, that will make us nervous. If we are massing troops on the border, that will make them nervous." Despite clear shortcomings in being able to keep their war machine running, as evidenced by the inability to keep Ukraine stocked with supplies and weapons, NATO continues to increase military spending from European budgets already stretched thin by post-COVID recovery, unemployment, lackluster delivery of basic services, and the consequences of climate change. NATO as an institution was founded to counter the Warsaw Pact, a military coalition of the former socialist bloc nations that hasn't existed for over 30 years. NATO continues to exist solely as a military force for the maintenance and protection of the interest of Western capital, seen best in the destruction and looting of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya. The clock is ticking for TikTok in the United States. Montana Governor Greg Gianforte on Wednesday signed legislation to ban Chinese-owned TikTok from operating in the state in order to, quote, protect residents from alleged intelligence gathering by China, making it the first U.S. state to ban the popular app. Riding the saber-rattling anti-China train, this is yet another political stunt aimed at garnering support from underinformed voters, who are manipulated into fearing a foreign state gathering their data, which is factually incorrect in the case of TikTok, while having 100% of their online activity stored and analyzed in miles of server rooms right here at home. The TikTok ban is to take effect January 1st, 2024. Chinese President Xi Jinping has announced a comprehensive plan for the development of Central Asia, including infrastructure construction and the promotion of trade. China aims to coordinate development strategies with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, taking on a leadership role in a region traditionally influenced by Russia. This move positions China as a major player in the pursuit of political influence and energy resources in Central Asia, with Russia focused on Ukraine and the diminishing presence of the US in the region. The president emphasized the need for deepened trust and support in areas such as sovereignty, independence, and national development. China plans to improve law enforcement, security, and defense capabilities in the region, as well as upgrade investment agreements, increase trade volume, create jobs, and provide financial support and grants totaling $3.8 billion. In the US, there is uncertainty surrounding the Federal Reserve's decision on whether to raise interest rates at its upcoming policy meeting. While many traders and analysts expect a pause in the rate hikes, Fed officials are still discussing whether to frame it as an extended halt or a temporary break before resuming increases. Fed Chair Jerome Powell's speech on Friday may provide some insight, but the unresolved political standoff over the US federal debt ceiling leaves the question open. In Ukraine news, Zelensky is expected to join G7 leaders in Japan after a surprise stop at the Arab League summit in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, Prigozhin, head of the Wagner Group, states that Bakhmut is unlikely to fall in totality to either side for now. though recent reporting suggests Ukrainian troops have been forced back to a significant degree. And in positive news of the day, the Kiwis are making headway with people-first policies. The government plans to scrap all fees New Zealanders pay for most prescriptions, give an extension of 20 hours free healthcare to 2-year-olds, and the budget will also provide for free public transportation for kids under 13, and cut the price in half for those under 25. That's all for today. We'll be back on Monday with more news. If you'd like to see more in-depth analysis, consider supporting us on Patreon so we can grow and expand.